Welcome to Mindful Live 108. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 14th of July 2022. And today, according to when you're looking at this, because you could be looking at this on delay, if you are looking at this on my YouTube channel, Nathan Spring over there, drop a like, hit that subscribe button if you are not yet subscribed, and do tell me something, drop something in the comments if you're over there on YouTube. But yes, we're talking about Tobago. At least that's what we're starting talking about. Nathan, you heard Elon Musk's father have a child for his... Whoa, sir. Whoa there. I did not hear that. I did not hear that. So, yeah. That's some out there information. I did not hear that. But I am talking about Tobago because an issue is rearing its head over there in Tobago. Regularly, we speak about the problems the younger generation has in joining the workforce, in getting positions, getting their feet inside of the door. You know, the older generation seems like they take up all the space. And when are the younger generation going to get their chance? That kind of thing. Good night, Super Mario. Good night, Friday Forever. Yeah, when is the younger generation going to get their chance? And well, the Tobago leadership seems to be wanting to give the younger generation their chance. And how they're going about it has created a bit of friction. Let's get into this story out from Tobago and see if we could make sense of this. Augustine rubbishes call by Minority Council for apology to senior citizens. He not about that apology. Bad man don't apologize to no senior citizen. That was a tune. That was a tune. Ha. The backstory of that tune is quite something. That tune got quite... that tune got quite a few people. That tune got quite a few people banned from performing in the United States. Did I know that Nisi was a red woman? I believe I did know that. I believe I did know that. Jakers, sorry, my brother. I admire your hope. I admire your hopefulness. Hope springs eternal in the youthful heart, but you are not first. But yes, Ria, I knew that. I did know that. Wow. The jokes want to tell themselves here, because if we highlight the fact of the level of melanin in a person's skin, and then the fact that somehow Nisi manages to be in the live most reliably and loyally, you know, you could wonder about certain assumptions made in the general culture about the predisposition of certain less melanated people to less loyal positions. I will not go any further in that. Anyway, we're over in Tobago. We're over in Tobago. But Ria, you bounced up Nisi today or what? What went on? You bounced up Nisi today and you were pleasantly surprised? Augustine rubbishes called by minority leader for apology to senior citizens. Nisi says, listen, the first thing Ria said to me is, I thought you was black. I thought you, but red is, black is the race. A red person can be black. So you could still be black. Why didn't she think you were red though? Was there not the assumption in your speech of a red woman? You don't talk like a red woman or something. I don't understand why she assumed that. Maybe it's your emoji, your avatar over on TikTok here is a little deceptive. You know, I have some scruples I am one of those sticklers. I come from the generation where I find red should be red. I find red should be red. Now, we're getting a little distracted from Tobago, but you all know how it goes sometimes. I find red should be red. I have a problem. I'm letting you all know what I have a problem with. I have a problem with the caramel people that claim red. Like, I find in a country like Trinidad and Tobago, we are supposed to understand the nuances in the different shades. If you're caramel, you're not red. If you're caramel and you stayed out the sun for a couple months, you're still not red. Red is red. Like, if somebody scratches you, it's supposed to leave a kind of red mark on your skin. Red is, anyway, let's not go any further into that. We're talking Tobago before Rhea distracted us here with melanin. THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine has described as rubbish a call by the Minority Council for an apology to senior citizens during his wrap-up on debate on the 2022-2023 fiscal package presentation on June 23rd at the Assembly Legislature in Scarborough. Augustine said, this was the Tobago Chief Secretary. We met people in their 70s, 60 something, retired long time, arthritis knocking out their knees, and they holding on, and we don't want to put young people there. I made a very firm position. When your contract up, go home and mind grandbabies. Yes. The Tobago Chief Secretary told those of advanced age that as long as your contract ends and you're already up there in age, don't look for it to get renewed. Ride out. Easy says we on the inside. Good night, Mindful Life. Good night, Easy. Now, the thing is, many of us in the younger generation regularly lament about these problems. The young people want a place in the thing. The young people want to be able to step into the door. They want to be able to get things done. During his ride, we read that the statement was made on the heels of a response by Minority Leader Kelvin Morris, who during his contribution called on the Assembly to have a policy of knowledge transfer, giving young people in the workforce a clear pathway. Morris said people on the verge of retiring should be given the opportunity to be part of a 3-year mentorship program where the senior can mentor the young professionals, raising the issue during Tuesday's evening's Minority Report and Tobago Updates. Morris said he believes Augustine was disrespectful to those who served to the extent that the only role seniors are good for is to go home and mind grandchildren. That's supposed to be done while they're on work, Rhea says. Here's the thing. I think you could be right and wrong in a statement at the same time. There was a video I looked at, I believe it was originally on TikTok, but I saw it over on Facebook. And it was a lady talking about mother-in-laws and the place that she believes mother-in-laws should hold. And her intro was, mother-in-laws, know your place. Mother-in-law, know your place. You are not the wife. You are not to go in the front seat and sit down there when the wife. And I think in the general setup of traditional families, she's right. But in the respect and in terms of getting the outcome you want, you're wrong. Because if you approach the topic with that kind of attitude in the first place, to me, it already shows that you have the wrong intent. So I believe that there should always be succession. The young people are meant to take the place of the old people eventually. I do not believe in usurping, though, because when you usurp, it does not work. Many young people have revolutionary mindsets, and they are of the view that we must go in there and flip this thing upside down and take it over and start over. And the reality is that almost never works. Things that actually work is when you have that smooth handoff. It's a relay. The one previously must hand it to you. OJT has to be accountable for teaching the upcomers to replace. NIS have to be held accountable to have the people money when they're ready. I suppose that's for retirement. But part of the problem is if you created the system, where you created a system where you have people working on for years and years, decades and decades, you keep bringing them on. And then all of a sudden your plan is just to fire them all and rehire young people. I don't think that's a good plan. As much as I do agree with putting young people into the places of employment, I don't think that just getting rid of the old people is a good way to put it. And I certainly don't think that speaking to old professionals and telling them, you just pack it up and go home and mind grandchildren, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good way to make your point. I don't think that's a good way to make your point, especially as a politician. Remember, you're a politician at the end of the day. It's similar, like, okay, grandparents do fulfill the role very often of caretaker in many families in the world. That's true. Grandparents do fulfill that role. But to tell them that right now you should just leave the workplace and go and see about babies sounds a bit insulting. So, for example, women do fulfill the role of caretaker very often in our societies. But if you just ups and tell women, well, you know what, we're on a financial difficult time right now. We're looking for people who could devote 100% of their time. All mothers, pack it up, go and see about your babies. If you say that in modern times, they are going to crucify you online. They are going to make your little clip of you saying that go viral. And feminists from every square corner of this world, every square inch of this world, are going to come out and attempt to have you lynched. Because such a thing will rightfully sound insulting. That's not the way you put across such a message. That's not the way you do it. These people are retired and back on contract. Whether they're retired and back on contract or not, you who brought them back, the government brought them back. That's what happened. They didn't come and force themselves there only of their own volition. They were hired. So in releasing them from their duties, you have to treat people with respect. Sending people who are professionals out from their job, telling them, go home and see about grandchildren, is disrespectful. Similarly, that's what I was saying. If you are releasing mothers from their employment duty for some reason and tell them the same thing, it will be seen as disrespectful, because it is a disrespectful thing to say. Easy says it's a business setting, Nathan. Let's run it like a profitable business and not have emotions get in the fold. Oh, if that is the case, well, then we are going to have to disrupt the whole running of the government. And the truth and the fact of the matter is they don't want to run it like a business. I will be very fine if they wanted to run it like a business. And in the first place, if this was a business and you were a PR professional and you fired people by telling them go home and mind their grandbabies, you would be fired also. So if you're talking about running it professionally and running it like a professional business, that's not how professional businesses run in the first place. That's not how you deal with PR and deal with the human resource. That's not what you do in the first place. And then if you're talking about running it like a professional business, then 90% of their staff may need to be fired. And the expectations that they currently have of expanding CPEP, of expanding URP, of expanding the already mammoth-sized THA employment percentage in Tobago, their intention is to expand that. If you're talking about running it like a private business, your intention wouldn't be to expand that. So yeah, my problem is when you want to say you're running it like a private business at some point, and then you're not running it like a private business at another point. It's the double standard in it that gets me bothered, really and truly. If you want to run it like a private business, strict, you're running it strict. It's about the money. It's about the bottom line. If these old people cannot cut it, well, then we will write them a severance package and send them out to pasture. It's a private business. Okay, fine. Well, run it profitably. But that's not what they're going to do. Very likely, what may be happening here is they may be clearing plates at the table so they may be able to feed their friends at the table. That's what many politicians do. When they get into power, they have to clear out the other feeders who are feeding from the previous political establishment, and they have to clear them out so they could bring in their own friends and family to get in on the feeding business. That's how it generally goes, not so? And it would be particularly cynical if you are doing this really and truly. The main reason you're doing this, is to make room for your political affiliates to come in. If that's the main reason you're doing it, and then on top of that, you're insulting the aged, the elderly, people who already put work in for decades, you're insulting them while firing them, while doing it just to bring in your friends. If that is the case, that would add extra insult to injury right there. Doing that clearing isn't a bright idea at times. No, not all the time it is. Well, then make the mandatory age of retirement 65 and optional retirement from 60. I agree with things like that. Do not get what I am saying mistaken. I am not proposing that we keep aged people on. I find we have too many septuagenarians in public life. Like, after you cross 65, you should be going into consultancy. People should be asking you your opinion, and you're behind the scenes. Like, you really shouldn't be in the 40 here. When you look at so many of these global leaders, and regularly they have to fly off to a hospital to get some kind of bypass, to get something stitched up, to get something hemmed up. Like, no, sir, you are in your 70s. I do agree with the sentiment that maybe Dr. Rowley, maybe Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, maybe their better position would be in a what do they call those recliner seats, a lazy boy somewhere, holding grandbaby and rocking them and talking about the good old days. Maybe that might be better, but nonetheless, you have to do that in a tactful manner. And I agree that these things need to be done, written down. So it's not the standard isn't wishy-washy. The standard doesn't flip-flop. There isn't the hypocrisy in it. If it is that, okay, we need to release people at 65, well, make it a law. The people are released at 65. Don't have it that, okay, you say we need to release people at 65, but then your friends and family somehow are able to stay on after 65. It's the double standard in lots of these things that cause the problems. Evening curve on should have no politicians over 55. I don't agree with that. I do believe that many aged people have a lot to offer. Have a great deal to offer. And maybe there might be some old people who are much better at certain things. But then there obviously needs to be balance. Now cut it off, that is madness. So why they can't just do consultancy? I am saying over 55. I'm talking about Easy's proposal there. Over 55. There should be no politicians over 55. I certainly don't agree with that. I know I might say the prime political age for me might be directly in your 50s. In your 50s might be the prime age for a politician, in my opinion. In my opinion, it allows you enough time to see the world as it is. Listen, I am not as enthusiastic as some people about seeing 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds running things in and around the world. That is a scary prospect to me. It really is. I believe that they should be allowed in the door, that they should be given responsibility, that they should be on the way to leading things. But some of the style of the 20 and 30-year-olds of our generation, a lot of the younger people in our generations have not experienced the real world, and I think they will crash what they are put in charge of in a quick time. I'm sorry, that is what I believe. My only issue with sending people off to graze at 65 is make the pension a livable sum. Wow, that's another question. What about when life and things changes and they're not willing to adapt? That's true. Good night, Wendy Medium Excel. That's why I think there is supposed to be that intertwining of both. I think you are supposed to have the old and the young intertwined in an organization, or the older and the younger intertwined in an organization, exactly for that purpose. So you have the older ones there who are generally not as willing to take change and adapt to change, as Rhea rightfully pointed out, and that is a good thing. By the way, that is a good thing for leadership. You do not want people in positions of leadership too willing to change on a whim. You do not want that. That is a bad trait in leadership. You need that stability. So you want some of that extra stability in leadership while being surrounded by people who would push at the stability to make sure that the stability is indeed the best option. So yes, okay, we have a system of voting right now that is currently first past the post, and there may be older generations not willing to change that, and you would want someone in that senior position maybe with that less willingness. But the ideal is to have a lot of people in the younger ones always pushing at the bounds to see and make sure that we are in the strongest system. That's the ideal of a perfect system. You need the stability but not stubbornness. Very true. Patrick Manning was fairly young when he was introduced into politics as a parliamentary secretary. I am not saying that young people shouldn't be in politics. That's not what I am saying at all. I am talking about prime positions for leadership in politics. Prime age, if you were to ask me, I think the prime age for leadership in politics, this isn't saying that a 20 or 30-year-old cannot do it. This is my opinion of what I think the prime age might be in politics. That 50 to 60 decade. You work, you build your experience, you build your life experience, you have a family. And I understand why in most countries people are very unwilling to vote for people or select people into senior positions who don't have a family, because you want people who have the realistic experience of seeing and knowing what happens to multiple people under your charge in the real world. And you wait some time for people to experience certain things, and then eventually you put them there. He had to come to the ranks. Trini Sam says, hi, Trinidad needs constitutional reform. It's well overdue. I agree. Mr. Pandey has been saying that for multiple decades now, but how's that been going? One of the difficulties with that is with the constitutional reform requests, the politicians are the ones who have to reform the constitution. The winning politicians are the ones who have to reform the constitution. And if you won as a politician under this present constitution, you acquire power under this constitution. Why would you change it? You don't exactly have a lot of motivation to want to change it. There isn't that incentive structure for politicians winning with the current constitution, with the current power setup. If I win like that, why would I want to switch it? I'm winning, I'm fine with it like that. Bejan Coin says, before I believe the right age was about 40, you just changed my mind. Now, in Grenada has a new prime minister, 44, and I don't think the man is inexperienced. I don't think 44 is too young. 44 might be a beautiful age for it. So it's not like some hard and fast thing I'm saying. I am just looking at several things in how I think about this. If I want to choose a perfect leader for my country, I would want someone who has had a child and seen that child grow up through most of the phases that the regular population would have their children growing up through. You'd want them with that kind of experience. Not saying that someone without that experience would not be able to lead well, but I'm talking ideally, if you were to pick someone, so you could understand why there is that general age. Now, on the other hand, as you all are pointing out, I do agree that maybe, all right, 50 to 60, great. But after that, you really shouldn't be going up for re-election. No way someone in their 70s should be going up to be elected as the leader of a country. That's my opinion. I don't think someone in their 70s should be offering themselves as leader for a country. I really don't think so. Maybe you should be throwing your support behind someone you think should be leader. Something like that. You back this candidate, you back that candidate. Come propose ideas. You know how Trinidad is committee country. Trinidad loves a committee. We always have a committee for something or the other. If you are over 70, okay, fine. You go and sit down in a committee. I will even excuse that. Sit down in a committee, but please, no, not leadership, really. But it seems like the taste of power is addictive. Nathan, also the retirement packages for these politicians, thoughts about it. I know it is sweet, but nearly everything about political life is sweet. So I find politicians are paid too much. The basis for paying politicians, for paying judges, for paying public officials, etc., etc., the basis for paying them so much and so much extra is supposedly that by paying them so much, you are decreasing their motivation, their incentive to take bribes, etc., etc. But we know that's not true. A wise man once said, enough money ain't enough money. There's nothing such as enough money. So if someone is getting a lot of money, that doesn't decrease their likelihood of taking a bribe. So I think no, it's not that. I am not saying that politicians aren't worthy necessarily of getting a good salary. I'm saying when you compare it to the general public, and considering that politicians are paid based on the public purse, you have to collect money from everyone else in order for you to be paid, then I think that pay should be kind of relative and dependent on the money you're collecting from people. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, this example. Churches. I find it offensive to look at a church and see a pastor living in luxury while his congregation is generally in squalor. And I think it should be a similar thing even on the political realm. If you are collecting money from these people in order to do a job to help these people, no way should it be that you are living by far better than all these people you are supposed to be helping. It kind of doesn't really add up. It doesn't really add up. If you have people struggling to get their pensions, if you're talking about dropping and cutting people's pensions, if you're saying that we'd have to raise the pension age and all of that, then as a politician, for you to in the same breath be collecting really lucrative pensions at the same time, seems a bit strenuous on the population. You're straining people. And the thing is, really and truly, politicians govern with the people's consent. If you do not have the okay from the people, you are unable to govern. Some people, especially in the more anarchist style of things, they have it as you're governing with the consent of the governed. And they put it as what the government really has is a monopoly on violence. That's basically what we give the government. They have the monopoly on violence. They could commit violence against anyone, and okay, we think the government is right for doing that. If the population stops trusting the government, in 2019, RIA says, when it raised, I think it's every 5 years it's supposed to increase. Jeez. It's so funny. They have a salary reviews commission to go about looking at comparative salaries around the world to determine their salaries. But why not do that for everyone else? How come only your salary could be determined like that? Torres Leaf Vialva says, Nathan, do you know that in order to collect a pension, they come and assess the rentability of your home? Well, yes. Because our pension, there was some bacchanal sometime before where our pension the UNC and the partnership wanted to call it a pension, while the PNM insisted that it was a grant. Because a grant, you are not entitled to a grant, you are given a grant, you are granted a grant. So our grant, our old age grant, the pension, you cannot get it if you are making money otherwise. So for many of those people, like taxi drivers, they know that very well. If you still have a registered taxi badge, you won't be collecting pension, because they're going to be like, okay, we know you're making money otherwise, we aren't going to give you that money. So yeah. Your mom key, wow, your mom key says new lawyers make not even a 1/10 of the same that new lawyers in other countries make. Bajan Coin says, but we can look at the French Revolution to remind them their monopoly on violence ain't that strong. Right, that's where I was going. The monopoly on violence is only had because the population allows it. That's the only reason the government can have the monopoly on violence, is because the government is because the people allow it. If the people don't allow it, then the government just hangs up. For example, in Haiti is struggling right now. Haiti is struggling because people have lost trust in the government. The last president was assassinated. I believe the man who was supposed to be the next prime minister was arrested on suspicion in that assassination. The country is going kind of haywire. And when the government is seen as being incapable of running that monopoly on violence, what happens is they lose the monopoly on violence. Different people decide that, you know what, I'm going to hold peace of violence too. A monopoly means that they alone control it. So like if the government was the only controller of all the groceries in the country, but then when we start to see, well, they aren't controlling it well, different people start popping up and controlling their violence all on their own. Haiti violence, scores killed as gangs fight for control. At least 89 people are reported to have been killed in a week Wow. 89 people killed in a week. In a week of gang warfare in the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. The mayor of the impoverished city Soleil neighborhood said two criminal alliances known as G9 and GPEP were fighting for control of the area. Mayor Joel Janias told local radio that residents were under a state of siege and lacked water, food, and fuel. Gang violence has shut up since the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse by mercenaries a year ago. The latest deadly gang fight erupted on Thursday last week. While no official death toll has been given, local human rights group says it knows of 89 people killed. Jeez, that's scary. And these gangs in Haiti right now, they're doing press conferences, etc. The government has lost the monopoly on violence. So when the government has the monopoly on violence, the population look to the government to solve issues where violence may be needed as part of the solution. But if the government has lost that monopoly, citizens who are now under the control, yes, that's what they can confirm. Almost surely it would be more than that 89 number. Citizens who are now under areas where these other little groups that control the violence would now have to go seek out these groups to get the issues solved, issues that may require violence. Some of these groups are doing press conferences out there. Barbecue, who is the head of one of the gangs, his name is Barbecue. G9's leader is a former police officer turned criminal boss, Jimmy Cherizier, also known as Barbecue. Barbecue's brazenness is such that last year, his gang members opened fire at a monument just as Prime Minister Ariel Henry was about to lay a wreath, sending the Prime Minister and his entourage fleeing. So it's winner take all. They're fighting for control of territory. That's what happens when the government loses their monopoly on violence. If the government isn't seen as having that ultimate control of violence, well, people are going to end up taking matters into their own hands. Your monkey says, now compare that to the amount of deaths in Trinidad in proportion to Haiti. Not so far ahead. Come on, that's a great gangster named Barbecue. Well, I guess he smokes a lot of people. Slaps knee. I don't know how the man got his name. I really don't know what gave him his name. So the solution to a lot of these things is for the government to, you have to be reasonable if you're in a position of governance. And as I was saying when someone pointed out about running it like a private sector, part of the problem, I think, has to do with the double standard. And when I look at the present issue we're facing with the police service right now, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and the mistrust that they're having with the residents, particularly in East Port of Spain, I see a lot of this has to do with the double standard in how they speak. So one of the prime examples I have for this that I keep talking about with this is, the Commissioner of Police. So let's get into an article here. Jacob must apologize. PCA fined police misconduct during masjid raid. Acting Commissioner of Police McDonald Jacob owes an apology to the Masjid Al-Huda, situated at Rich Plain, Diego Martin. The call was made yesterday by Yahya John Karim, spokesperson for the masjid, while speaking to the Express following a statement by the Police Complaints Authority that the police officers at the center of allegations of assault and desecration at the masjid may have not only breached law but the constitution of this country as well. Karim said the masjid had been aware of the PCA release and they were pleased. However, he firmly believed that Jacob ought to apologize to the citizens of Rich Plain, as he thought that the desecration of the masjid, as well as other allegations of abuse, stemmed from the declaration of war by McDonald Jacob following PC Clarence Gilk's death. We would like him to apologize to our community and residents of Rich Plain because to us it was a statement that Gilk's death was by a citizen and an act of war without real proof is what led to other officers treating us very hostile. Now, the reason I'm reading all of this is because if you go read the articles right now where they're talking about, where the commissioner is talking about the investigations into the police misconduct, if you go read those articles, see what the commissioner says. One of his favorite things to comment and see is that he cannot yet speak on these issues because the evidence hasn't yet come out. The investigation isn't yet complete. I don't too much like that statement, but if you are able to hold that statement solidly across all different scenarios, then fine. I may not like it, but it is what you do. It is your custom. However, when Commissioner Jacobs turned up in Diego Martin after one of his officers was killed by another one of his officers, and they lied about it, instead of coming and saying that, well, we are trying to get to the bottom of this issue, he came in and said that the criminal elements, some citizens in this neighborhood, have declared war on the police without the evidence to back that up. Now, if the members of this masjid say they believe they could link that statement directly to what happened, and the statement was wrong too, how now, back then, you were able to make that statement so quickly, run up on the scene and talk about people declaring war on the TTPS in the snap of a finger? How then now, when it has been proven that what you were willing to make the pronouncement of war for was erroneous, how come now you are now so reserved in making comments? Why isn't it that why aren't you bold enough to say, well, by the act that the PC has alleged there, it seems like some members of the TTPS have declared war on the civilians of this country, and we must get to the bottom of this matter if it means turning the entire TTPS inside out. How come you are not bold enough to say a statement like that? But you could run up in a rich plane and talk to unarmed citizens and talk about they've declared a war on the TTPS. That's the double standard that bothers me. It's the double standard. If you maintain the standard of keeping mum, of hushing your mouth, of not saying anything before any investigation is ever completed, fine. But you don't do that. You speak early when it's to your convenience. And that's the double standard that creates the problems. Similarly, in that double standard of speaking, the Minister of National Security, regularly you hear the Minister of National Security saying things like he does not run the police service, he does not run the investigations. In fact, he has no intimate knowledge of these investigations. He is just there as policy oversight to make sure that the general structure of the TTPS is sufficiently funded, is sufficiently resourced. That is his portfolio. He is not there to, get into the nitty-gritty of each investigation. And okay, if that is the case and you maintain that throughout everything, then fine. But then you will say that, and then in the same breath, you would hear Hines, Monday's protests well organized, well funded. National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines has hinted Monday's protests in the capital were well funded and organized, but he stopped short of identifying by whom. Speaking at the opening of the St. Clair police station this morning, Hines noted that while that's another morning, of course, Hines noted that while citizens have the right to protest, they do not have the right to break the law. He went a step further, saying that police officials have since identified and are monitoring those who allegedly injected money to orchestrate the events that he said impacted law-abiding citizens. So, isn't the National Security Minister just a regular citizen when it comes to the national security apparatus, when it comes to being in the line of chain of command in the TTPS? He's just a civilian. He's not inside the police service. So how would the Minister of National Security know that the police officials have identified and are monitoring those who allegedly injected money? Is it that the investigation is complete and he was handed a report on it? If he was handed a report by the police into this matter, and that's what the report said, why would you just throw out those allegations with no proof, nothing to link it, no person being named, but just casting aspersions on all of the protests, but nothing else? It's so strange. And then when you have people in other situations asking about investigations into other matters, Mr. Minister of National Security, how is the investigation going into the boys that were murdered in Mova by the police? How is that investigation going? Well, I am not a member of the police service. I am not privy to the information coming out of these investigations. You'd have to ask an investigator inside of the TTPS, because these investigations, you'd have to understand, there's a modus operandi to these investigations. There is a command chain, and I am not within that command chain, so I would not be able to supply you with that information. That's what you would hear if you ask him about some other investigation that may be of relevance to the wider public in another issue. He doesn't know. But then how do you know in something like this? And if you do know, why do you talk about it? What is the purpose with talking about it in a case like this? talking about it, saying that it was funded, without saying how you know it was funded, without saying who funded it, all you are doing is trying to berate the purpose of the protest. Here's why I say that. Because the protest was already disliked. People who did not like what the residents did not like that the residents blocked the road, etc., etc. They already did not like the protest. By telling them that the protest was paid for, that doesn't make them not like the protest anymore. It's already disliked. So what is the purpose for letting it be known? What is the purpose for letting it be known that the protests were paid for? To me, the only logical reason for that is to belittle the purpose of the protest. Politics, as Tony the Ambassador says, very true. It's a political move. The only reason you say this is for the political benefit of letting people know that, listen, the residents of East Port of Spain do not actually dislike us that much. This wasn't an organic issue. You don't have to worry about these residents really disliking the government and really causing disruption in the country. This wasn't something organic. This was paid for by underworld figures. That's the purpose of that. That's the purpose of letting it be known like that. It does not help the country. It's a political move. And then, if you are taking privileged police information, investigations into this matter, if you are saying people paid for it, that means this would have people's names in it. That means we have a politician with the names of citizens in the country. Bear in mind, no one was arrested for the matter, so we'd have a politician with the names of innocent citizens in the country and using that information for political benefit. Our police service is being used by politicians, the political directorate in charge right now. They are using the TTPS for their own political benefit. A protester had a PDP shirt. Well, that doesn't matter, and that's not surprising. They had a protest, was it today or yesterday, where they actually went with the PDP leader. The PDP leader led them straight to the parliament. I believe they went to protest. No, sorry, the police headquarters. And here's the thing with that. I said this at the beginning. The nature of these kind of protests, this is why I don't generally push them. I don't generally push for that. Because these protests are nearly always commanded by someone else. These protests are nearly always commanded by someone else. You come in with your own mission, but someone else is going to come in. They may be more savvy in the whole protesting workings, and they come in and use your emotion, use your anger for their own motives. It's the fact, it's the truth. It happens in most protests, especially if they lose control. But that doesn't deny the fact that the initial cause that someone went out with to protest may very well be legitimate. They always know who did what, but no one ever is held. That's true. That's very true. They always know. They always know. And Mr. Hines, this isn't the first time he said things like this. I remember a couple months ago, he came out speaking about someone who offered him a $60,000 watch or something like that. And the question that everyone asked after that is, okay, if someone offered you a $60,000 watch, why isn't that person in jail? Like, you come to tell us this story to let us know about how virtuous you are. You know, I am so virtuous that someone offered me a $60,000 watch and I told them no, because I'm just such an honest man full of integrity. But why isn't that offerer of bribes in jail? Who was the offerer of bribes? Did we ever find Mr. Big? Well, apparently not. Torres Villalva. Apparently not. All right, all right. Anything else, folks? Anything else? Any other questions, comments? I know some people who had all the jerseys. They had COPP and MUNC jerseys, they had them all. Now, I also know some people who told me with first-hand knowledge that they know contractors and large companies that sponsor jerseys of all colors. They are hedging their bets. So that whole jersey thing is. Hines is a useful MP in opposition. He's not bad as a debater. In government, he is incompetent. He can provide good opposition debate. That's true. This is why he does get sprinkled. That wasn't sprinkled, Nisi. Nisi, that wasn't sprinkled. That was a proper dashing. That was a proper dashing. And the part of the problem is Mr. Hines occasionally can come off as a bit condescending, and the condescension isn't something that many people can tolerate too easily. Do you have any thoughts on the bill that was brought to Parliament concerning private security? I am not familiar with that bill. I'm not up to date with that bill. I'd have to go read up more on it to have an opinion on it. I have no opinions on it, sir. Hines is a survivor, not a table shaker. That's true. But that's the thing with politics, and politics is a whole strange game. You have to survive your own political leader too. So you have to have allies in the right place, and sometimes what may make sense for your political career might not make sense for the country. But if you want to be able to stay there to do good for the country, then you have to hedge some of your standards to politics. Good night, Nest Fora. Not a fan of Imbert, I see. Imbert isn't a particularly likable fella, if we're being honest. He isn't a particularly likable fella. Yeah, you got it. Yes, I did. I don't think that one was hard to pronounce. Like some of the names I see there, you squint sometimes, but that one seemed pretty straightforward. Yeah, anyone else with any further comments or questions? Or is this it for the night? Shall we dive out and say goodbye? Hey, boy, Richard, you're real late, boy, you're real late. And you would have been good to be here because I went in on the police as usual. The police needed some defense, and you were not here. Imbert is not likable, but he is underrated. I don't even think he's underrated. I think like no one could say Imbert is like, you see how you could say that Mr. Hines might be incompetent. I wouldn't say Mr. Imbert is incompetent. He may not be likable, but I wouldn't call him incompetent. I mightn't like his policies either. I might think they may not work. I might think they're wrong, but I still wouldn't say he's incompetent. Honestly, I honestly don't understand it. Don't understand what exactly? Politicians want longevity, not to make too much ripples and lose. What do you think? Oh, okay. What do you think about the new electronic way of paying public servants? I don't understand. I am not a public servant. I don't know about that new electronic way. Someone would have to break that down for me. Imbert does an alright job. He might not communicate well. I still waiting for some water on the mountain here from him. Good night, sir. It's been a while, man. It's been a while. How things? What's that electronic way of paying public servants you're talking about? The money goes directly, but didn't the money always go directly in your account? I'm not sure what that is. He does only walk the hill for election. What hill is that? PT Valley side? Somewhere on that side there? Where's Imbert? Diego Martin, what? I've been good. Hope all is well with you and yours. Yeah, man. Things great over on this side. Wonderful, actually. Wonderful. The whole MP business, though, MPs don't really do MP jobs, and the nature of how that representation works, it isn't effective at all. No, Maraval. Imbert is incompetent. You all too lie. Imbert covers Paramin. Maraval. Oh, so Nisi up by you hot these days, eh? Wasn't it Maraval had the killing, some double shooting and stuff recently? Yeah. Things hot up in Maraval, Nisi. As a minister and MP. He is incompetent, Ria says. She is not having it. I wouldn't say that's what we were saying before. I wouldn't call him incompetent. I don't like him. He isn't likable. You know, he isn't the most likable kind of character, but you could understand. Nathan missed my comment about picking a weekend for the meetup. No, I did not miss your comment about that, actually. Picking a weekend. Okay, let's pick a weekend. This month we are in the month of July. The upcoming weekend is the 16th and 17th. Then there's the 23rd and 24th. And then there is the 30th and 31st. What's at the end of July? What's on that 30th, 31st weekend? What's on that last weekend of July? Saw the shooting video. No, I did not. I heard about the shooting, but I didn't see the video. Sheesh, that might be a little dark to see that video. But I heard that tells something about crime, eh? For someone to be shot high noon basically on Broadway in Trinidad, that's about the busiest area in the country. That's about the busiest area in the country. What? Like, jeez. How does that happen, and how does the shooter get away? In Trinidad. So what are you thinking about the last weekend in July for that? What do you think about the last weekend in July for that area? Tentatively, the last weekend in July. El Krum, I have a friend who pays her water bill and for water from a truck. Sheesh. Trinidad is a gunman with no cap. Yeah, it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary, the amount of guns. The guns and the gun violence is scary at a scary level in Trinidad. The murders, the killings in Trinidad, undoubted. Like, I regularly talk about perspective and having perspective, and Trinidad isn't the worst place in many different areas. But when it comes to the killings, there are few places comparable to Trinidad in how bad it is. All right, folks in the live, folks over on YouTube, the tentative weekend date for the meetup is the last weekend in July. The last weekend in July is the tentative date. How is that for everyone? Well, it would have to be how it is. Just like the DJ who got killed for not playing cheese. That was another. I read that story and I was like, this cannot be real. Someone really killed a man for not playing the song. For not playing the song. Some song you want. So we meeting on that tree. I don't know any good tree. Well, I know many good trees. I don't know any trees that may be large enough for all of that. I don't know. Where do you all propose? Under a tree. Wow. Where are you getting such a tree, Nisi? Do you know such a tree? The savannah? Well, that's true. The savannah does have tree. You know, I recorded a video under a tree in the savannah once. A salmon tree. Proper tree. Proper stuff. Doesn't even know where to get mosquito bite up and thing. Well, if you're outside under a tree, the chances of mosquitoes are pretty high. All right, so here's what. I won't be here tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, so I will see you all again Monday for the next Mindful Live. I have to create a Discord or something like that. Now, I heard someone talk about WhatsApp group. I am not in for all of that WhatsApp group and the amount of messages. WhatsApp groups, we could do away with that. But I think I'm looking to create a Discord server or something like that. So, you know, we could post stuff and plan stuff, etc. So I'll work on that over the weekend also, and we'll finalize where this tree that would be locating. You'll have no plan what we're meeting up to do. We're meeting up to meet up. That is the plan. The plan is the meetup. Listen, I have very few WhatsApp groups that I remain in. All the WhatsApp groups that I remain in are useful. I do use them, but they are all muted also. El Chrome, you're going down a different road. A different road. I do that tree you're talking about, there's a different tree. All right. That's all I have for now, folks. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. And we will talk again Monday for the next Mindful Live 9. As we said, the tentative date for the Mindful meetup is the last weekend in July. That 30th, 31st weekend, where is yet to be determined. What we are going to do, as Nisi somehow seems to be questioning, I suppose, is just meet up online. We can talk. Good night. Think you need to do a video on the real world map. Oh, that'd be interesting. All right, folks. Peace out. It was nice. I will see you all Monday. Laters. Peace.